Made in 1980, The Shining is one of the greatest and most remarkable horror films in history. The film stars Jack Nicholson as a frustrated writer who wants to get away from it all, so he gets a job as a caretaker of a very isolated and very large hotel known as the Overlook. Jack Nicholson takes his whole family to this hotel, hoping to get some peace and quiet so he can get some writing done. But things aren't that simple for Jack, because the hotel seems to have some memories of the people who were there before. Apparently it was also built on an Indian burial ground, which is never good. And Jack seems to start going a bit stir-crazy as he tries to write his book. Eventually his wife and his family just become a nuisance, and they start annoying him, and he can't get any work done, and he starts wandering around the hotel, and then strange things start happening. Whether he's hallucinating or whether he's seeing ghosts, we're not sure, but this is one hell of a psychological horror. What makes this film even more disturbing is Jack Nicholson's son, Danny, seems to have some sort of a mental ability that no one really understands. He seems to be having conversations with himself, and you think he's talking to his imaginary friend, but later on he insists he's talking to a little boy who lives inside his mouth. You soon begin to realise Danny's got an incredible mental gift, but it's got nothing to do with the hotel, but it does allow him to see things that nobody else can see. He can see the history of the hotel, he can see the murders, the deaths, and the people who were there before him. Eventually, the hotel starts having an effect on all the characters. Jack Nicholson becomes isolated from the others, he doesn't want anyone to disturb him, and eventually he lets his mind wander, and he becomes more and more unhinged as time goes by. Maybe it's isolation, or maybe it's the hotel itself getting to him. The Shining is packed full of great moments. One of my favourites is when Jack Nicholson's character goes into a bar, and all of a sudden there's a bartender there, and the bartender shouldn't be there, and you don't know if it's a ghost or a figment of his imagination, but he starts pouring him drinks and talking to him like he's just a regular guy at the bar. But you start to see how all this could affect a man's mind. I mean, at one point, the character Jack Nicholson plays meets the guy who used to be the caretaker of the hotel. And apparently he murdered his two daughters with an axe and shot himself in the head. And he's in the hotel and he starts talking to him like he's acting like some sort of butler. And he talks to Jack Nicholson about his family, telling him to, he must correct their behaviour because they're not acting appropriately. And it's quite a disturbing scene. One of my favourite moments is at the start of the film where Jack and his family are driving along this beautiful, rocky country road heading into the mountains, and yet it should be beautiful, but you've got this disturbing music playing, and it just gives you the impression they're going to the hotel of hell. They're descending into a demonic place, and they should just turn that car around and go home immediately. There's so many genuinely scary moments in this film. One of my favourite is when Danny's playing on the carpet with his toys and this ball suddenly just rolls up to him and it's just rolled along the corridor by itself and it's just really creepy. You think, where has that ball come from? Then, of course, you got the dead, rotting woman in the bathtub. I mean, that is scary. I mean, she's just like someone's dead grandmother lying in a bathtub and she's dead, and then she sits up and she starts laughing and it's so creepy. It's one of the creepiest scenes I've ever seen in a film. I mean, that would give any kid nightmares, isn't it? I mean, it's like watching your own dead grandmother coming back to try and kiss you. It's absolutely horrific. The film has a great mix of psychological horror and real horror. I mean, there's some pretty physical stuff in it. I mean, one guy gets killed with an axe. That's pretty surprising and brutal. I mean, the film is a masterpiece. There's no doubt about it. But if I had to pick one scene to be the greatest and most scary scene in the film, it's the scene with the two twin girls. First of all, the scene's got a great build-up because Danny's got this little tricycle. He rides around the hotel, he rides around the carpet, and you can hear the noise on the hard floor, and then he goes on the carpet and it goes quiet, and you can just hear him driving around the hotel on this little bike, and he goes round corners, and you don't quite know what's going to happen, but you know every time he goes round the corner there could be something evil waiting there, and eventually there is. It's all about the build-up, and it really is brilliant and terrifying, and it's great filmmaking. I mean, the director did a fantastic job of building up that tension, and then it's got a great payoff. I mean, the scene is brilliant. The way the camera follows Danny along with his little tricycle. He's just going around the hotel, minding his own business. But you can hear this creepy music and you know something's not right. You know something bad's going to happen, but you don't know what. And he's going around these really tight corridors and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what to expect, but you know it's not good. And then he gets around the corner and then you see, oh my God. Oh, that is terrifying. The two most creepy looking twins you've ever seen with massive foreheads. After this, Danny gets out his little imaginary finger friend and starts saying, "Oh shit, Tony, we're in trouble now." Surprised Tony didn't say, "Let's get the fuck out of here, Danny. This is terrifying." No matter who you are, you have to admit this is one of the greatest, scariest movie scenes of all time. I remember watching this as a kid and it freaked me out. And it turns out these two girls are the caretaker's children, the former caretaker. You know, he killed them with an axe. So it's pretty brutal and creepy. It's just brilliant directing. He builds up the tension with Danny going round the corner. You just don't know what to expect. But when you see the twins, they are the creepiest looking twins I've ever seen. I mean, as a kid, I watched this and I really was like, wow, that is scary. And that was one of my favourite scary scenes ever. In fact, that is one of the greatest, scariest horror scenes of all time. If you haven't seen the film, even if you watch it for the first time, even by today's standards, that is a brilliant jump scare. I mean, it really is shocking. So if you've never watched The Shining, you're in for a treat because it really is a masterpiece of psychological horror and probably one of the greatest horrors ever made. I mean, I first watched it as a kid late night on TV and I never forgot it. I mean, it terrified me. But I find this film gets better as you get older. The more you watch it, the better it gets. It just seems to get better with age, like a fine wine. Brilliant stuff.